Where did Vyasadeva get inspiration to compile this literature? Suta Goswami began to answer in chapter 5, and he's going to continue in the chapter 6. Narada Muni very briefly touched upon his previous life in order to bring out the glories of bhakti, in order to emphasize how bhakti is the process which can actually completely satisfy the soul. You have neglected to write exclusively about Krishna. And after that, he concluded his message saying, therefore, Vyasadeva, please write a literature in which people can experience Krishna. And that is why he edits and writes Srimad Bhagavatam. However, Dev has curiosity, I would say. It's very natural. Say if you are a spiritual master, started speaking about his previous life, you'd be very interested to know more. And if he just briefly mentions and does not elaborate, then out of eagerness, it is very natural for a disciple to inquire for more details. And that's what happens with Vyasa. He inquires about Narada's past. Okay, what did you exactly do after they leave? Like, how did you become like this? Like, how did that whole transformation happen from being a humble servant or son of a servant maid to being Narada Muni? So, that question actually invites Narada Muni basically to share more. So, he shares a little bit more details of what he exactly did after the sages left. So, this chapter again could be divided into two sections as you're seeing on the screen. Narada Muni's journey as a small boy and how he had the darshan of the Lord. And then, after the darshan of the Lord disappeared, what did he do? How did he become Narada Muni? Physically, also, how he got completely transformed, and his final instructions to Vyasadeva. So, these are broadly the two sections we can think of. This chapter has only 38 verses. It's a short chapter. However, has a lot of important inspiration for any sadhak. In the first 13 verses, we see how Narada Muni's mother passes away, and considering it as a mercy of the Lord, the 5-year-old Narada Muni leaves home, announces everything, and goes to the forest. And there he meditates and has the first darshan of the Lord in his heart. And that's what we see between verses 14 and 25. And after that, the darshan disappears and the Lord instructs him to continue his sadhana. When he is fully purified, he says, you will become associate of me in this. And that's what happens in verses 26 and 33, how he becomes a personal associate of the Lord. And his final message to Vyasadeva in verses 34 and 38. In multiple ways, so you're going to see like translation. We are going to take verse by verse. Before that, if anybody wanted to, we will in detail see all of that. So I just gave like a summary or a flow of the whole chapter. If there is anything which needs to be clarified before we see the verses, you can always stop me. So basically, this whole chapter is sprouting from this one curious question of what did you do after the sages that gave you association and gave you instruction and even initiated you with a mantra? What did you do after initiation is what, especially after the sages left. What did you do? That is Vyasadev's question to Narada Muni. And we can see how that's very important. Like we all come across a devotional path and become serious, take initiation, and how we continue actually determines the graph of our spiritual journey. And here we see there are multiple questions that Vyasadeva asks. That first of all, Suta Goswami begins this chapter saying, oh, after hearing the story of Narada, Vyasadeva had some curiosity. He wanted to know more about his spiritual master's previous life. So he asked him further questions. And Vyasadeva, what did he ask? First of all, he asked, what did you do after the sages leave? How did you live after your initiation? And how did you attain your current form? Okay, you were a small boy, and now you are this great spiritual personality, transcendental person who travels all over the universe. I'm just curious, how do you remember such past events? And not just from the previous life, it's literally the previous day of Brahma. Like, how do you even remember these instances this clearly? So, these are his questions. And that's what Narada Muni is going to explain, answer in this particular chapter. He will exactly say what did he do, what happened with his life after the sages left, and how did he live after initiation. And how is that he is able to remember the Supreme Lord's, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, how he is? I just confused it. How is he able to remember the previous life? It's by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Krishna specifically blesses Narada Muni, saying, "This memory of your previous life will never go, even any iterations of creation or destruction." So here we are seeing, going to see from verses 5, very inspiring verses. This whole chapter is short, but also can be very inspiring for a practicing devotee. How we all have seen some movies in which, like, in a matter of a song, at least the Indian movies I'm speaking about, in one song, the hero will go from being a poor person to a very rich person. He will start a business and it will become so successful. He'll become like a very rich guy in one song. At least I've seen movies like that. So it's this chapter is like that, where Narada Muni begins as a small boy and goes all the way and becomes that great Narada Muni just in one chapter. So anytime I feel like when I read this chapter, it is very inspiring. At least it can give a short inspiration. Wow, yes, the process of bhakti has its power. If we continue, it can actually I can be an advanced. So here we see that how Narada Muni begins. He says, "This is how I continued my life." That's what he says in verse 5. And in verse 6, he says that how Prabhupada writes a very beautiful translation and also purports to all of these sections. I'm going to directly use Prabhupada translation. For the sake of space, I used those ones, but I'm going to directly read from Prabhupada's translation. So Prabhupada says, like, translates that how Narada Muni he says that he was the only son of his mother, who was a very simple woman, and he was a simple maid servant in a Brahmana school, and Narada Muni was her only son. So looks like she was also widowed. So she had no other alternative for protection or for expressing affection. You can imagine the amount of attachment a mother in that situation would have for her child. So Narada Muni says, she bound me with tie of affection. And she was literally trying her best to take care of her son to the best of her means. So she wanted to look after Narada Muni properly. Though Narada Muni says still that she was not independent, she was not able to do whatever she wanted, because we are all under the translates as that the world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Here, it can also mean fate or destiny. So the world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. He means Daru can be called as like a puppet. That how a puppet is being moved, a wooden doll is being moved by a puppet master. Similarly, the whole world is under the control of the destiny. So even though Narada Muni's mother tried her best to take care of Narada Muni, she could only do so much given her circumstances. And Narada Muni continues that how when he was a mere child of 5 years, it's such a pancha hayanaham. Clearly says it's a mere child of 5 years. I lived in a Brahmana school. Probably his mom was working there and he was living along with her mom and helping her in whatever he could do. And he was completely dependent on his mother's affection to be for the maintenance of his life. So it was his mother who was feeding him, bathing him, taking care of him, working on behalf of him, and supporting him. And of course, as a 5-year-old, he had no experience of the different places or the lands or any other thing. He was just a 5-year-old. However, during that time, one day or one evening, his mother goes to milk a cow and gets bitten by a snake, and actually dies. And here also Narada Muni expresses it in a very philosophical way. He says, Kala, influenced by the energy of time. By the influence of the time, my mom was bit by a serpent and she passed away. And Prabhupada writes a few lines as a purport, but very powerful, I would say. That is the way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. The poor boy was being looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the mother was taken from the world by the supreme will in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. So we see how difficult things externally, that a devotee goes through in their life could be the affection of the Supreme Lord, could be the mercy of the Supreme Lord, and that can be the way of the Supreme Lord bringing that particular soul closer to Him. So that is also one way to look at that, that the Lord may arrange painful events externally, like the death of a loved one, to draw the soul closer to Him. It's very difficult to reconcile. However, when one has faith, it is very easy, or I won't say easy, it is possible to reconcile even the most paradoxical things in that happens in life. I would say that faith is the agent to digest reality. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to digest reality sometimes. However, when we have faith in Krishna, it becomes easier to digest reality, even when the reality is apparently very painful, apparently very negative or inauspicious in the worldly sense. Still, as Prabhupada is saying, dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. It could be anything. Krishna can use the destiny of different people involved in our lives in a way to bring us closer to Him. It's not that he had to kill his mother in order to make the Muni a great devotee. It was the flow of Krishna as a perfect coordinator. So he can achieve multiple actions through one situation. So that's how karma is very difficult to understand, that different individuals come together because their karma is all like intertwined, that one thing is going to influence the other thing. So it's very mind blowing how our lives are orchestrated. However, when we take to devotional service, our destiny is in the hands of Krishna, our karma is in the hands of Krishna. He can choose to tweak it or give it as it is, whatever. The only goal is to bring us closer to Him. So that's what Prabhupada is writing here. So this is the way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. And then Narada Muni continues that, oh, how did he see this? Yes, the Lord is trying to help, but how is a devotee sees these kind of instances in life? He says, I took this as a special mercy of the Lord. Graham means favor. He saw it as a special mercy or the favor of the Lord unto him, who always desires benediction for his devotees. But that who is the Supreme Lord? What is his quality? He always desires benediction for his devotees. So in this way, I could reconcile. He says, in this way, thinking like this, I started for the north. Basically, he thought, okay, I don't need to continue to live here in the school and be just worried about my maintenance. I don't have my mom, but that's also a good thing. Now I can just leave home and focus on my spiritual life. Like as a 5-year-old, it's mind blowing that anyone can think like that. And the purport is also very powerful. Again, a couple of lines, but very nice. Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. And Prabhupada is not just writing these statements, it's a very lived reality for him. That when somebody told that, Swamiji, why are you writing these magazines? Write a book. He saw that as an instruction of his spiritual master. Immediately changed his strategy. And once when he was in the US, after he had just started the mission, he became sick. I think it is 1968. He got a heart attack, again a mild one, and he was hospitalized, and all the devotees were very concerned. And there was this, because it was a emergency, so they took him to a rookie doctor. He's not the best doctor available, but it was an emergency, so they took to this doctor, and this doctor checked everything, and then he came to Prabhupada in the presence of all his disciples and said, Prabhupada, he said, Swamiji, they all asked, what is the problem with Swamiji? He said, Swamiji is praying too much. So that was his diagnosis. He said, Swamiji, you are praying too much. And imagine, like, for a spiritual person like Prabhupada, that could be like a very kind of insulting. His disciples were actually visibly disturbed. What the hell? How do you say that Swamiji is praying too much? What do you, like, you want him to chant less, or how? He said, you should start walking. And Prabhupada immediately made it as his daily routine. And after that, we have had such amazing conversations. And that became his daily routine. Wherever in the whichever part of the world he was, Prabhupada never missed it. It became like he would wake up early, he would write, and he would take a shower, go take a darshan, and then just leave. Or sometimes, I think not like that. He would just go out with the devotees, chant and speak and walk, and then come back for darshan back to the temple. And then give a class after that. And then he would have a massage, and then he would meet people like that. So that doctor, a rookie doctor, who just in the passing said, Swamiji, you're praying too much. You should probably start walking. And he took it very seriously. And from then on, he started walking every day. And this is even like on a very, what do you call, on a very physical level. Still, he saw that particular thing also as an instruction coming from the Supreme Lord. So here, every situation that happens is like interpreting it as the benediction of the Supreme Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished, and spiritual health is obtained step by step. So mundane people misunderstand it. Sometimes people may think, oh, devotees, they have so much difficulties in life. So probably I shouldn't become a devotee. People may think like that. However, through all the difficulties, the Lord can bring us closer to Him. That only a devotee can actually experience and in their own lives and see that practically. And in text 11, okay, now he has decided to leave home. So he, what does he see? How is his travel going? So that's what is he's sharing in the 11th verse. Like, after my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests. And Prabhupada will have very given interesting, like, people think the modern civilization is just very smart, very recent, but he will take on this particular thing, that how he says, like, the mundane wranglers waste time with archaeological excavations without searching into the vital necessities of life. Basically, he's saying it's all cyclic, boys. Why do you waste time? Like, why do you want, you're so interested about history, but to that extent you forget the purpose of life. So that is his take. It's all cyclical. Before in the previous day of Brahma, probably it was looks like a Satyuga, like a kind of a time. Even when Narada Muni was there, I can clearly say. But still, it looks like it's surely a previous day of Brahma, and it surely is a much better age than today. And still, we see all kinds of modern, like advanced signs of an advanced civilization. And that's when Prabhupada says, oh, all these things go on again and again. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is the repetition of history which happened some hundreds of millions of years ago. And the most important factors of history are picked up to be recorded in this transcendental literature. And he says, Narada Muni, even as a mere child, he did not waste time with all these things. He just passed through them, and those things did not disturb him. And Narada Muni continues that how he passed through hills, mountains full of reservoirs, various minerals, gold, silver, copper, and through the tracts of land. So there was a metallurgical knowledge. There were mines, there were refineries, there was these ideas of all these metals for this boy, and at that time also. And through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers. And in this way, he's saying like how this whole atmosphere was so beautiful. And he passed through many forests, different kinds of forests, caves. And he also says that how it was very difficult to go through alone. He even visited some deep, dark, and dangerous, fearful forests, he says, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals. And Prabhupada does mention that how a mendicant must travel fearlessly, experience the world, and enlighten others. However, in Kali Yuga, like, hearing and chanting is emphasized over the imitation of a charya like Narada Muni or Chaitanya. He says it's not everyone's cup of tea. The essential thing is hearing and chanting is emphasized in these instances that are being recounted. He says, in this age, devotion, service of hearing and chant, repeating the holy glories of the Lord is strongly recommended. And one who takes the vow of renunciation need not imitate the Parivragacharya like Narada and Chaitanya, but may sit down at some holy place and devote his whole time and energy to hear and repeatedly chant the holy scriptures left by the great acharyas like the six Goswamis. And thus, traveling, Narada Muni, he feels very tired. Like, after traveling a lot, he just thinks he's very tired, like bodily and mentally. So he was very thirsty and hungry. So he takes a bath. He bathes in a river, and he drinks some fresh river water. And by that, he becomes completely relieved from his exhaustion. And after that, he sits under the shadow of a banyan tree in a remote forest. he begins to meditate upon the Supreme Lord. So after that, he sits under the shadow of a banyan tree in a remote forest and begins to meditate upon the super soul within. Whatever he has been taught by the Bhaktivedantas, he has done some sadhana with them, and he has continued that sadhana, and he has heard from them. So whatever he has learned from those great souls, he continues to apply that meditation. And Prabhupada also writes in the purport, one should not meditate according to one's personal whims. One should perfectly hear from an authority, and based on that, one should continue their spiritual practice. So Narada Muni had contacted these Bhaktivedantas, and he served them sincerely and got enlightened. And so he continued his spiritual practice based on their instruction. And here we see in these verses how Narada Muni gets this experience, spiritual perfection, very quickly. As soon as he begins to meditate, that he experiences the transformation, like the spiritual transformation. That literally in this verse, he is achieving the stage of Bhava. Prabhupada also writes in the part, this Bhava stage is attained after one has transcendental affection for the Lord. The first initial stage is called as, like we did discuss in the previous discussions, how it goes from Shraddha to Bhava and Prema. So he had already experienced and come to the stage of Bhava in the association of those sages. So he's continuing that. So that is why as soon as the Ashanai means first the Lord appeared in the heart, and then in, like, he's just experiencing the Lord completely. It's not that he's seeing the Lord, he's also experiencing. Vishnu writes that he experiences the fragrance of his body, the sound of his ankle bells, the beauty of his face. So the what we think as meditation can be like very unidimensional. However, here, and like we're saying, this is a very advanced level of meditation, that as soon as the Lord appeared in his mind, as soon as by the influence of the Hladini Shakti, the Lord is awakened in the heart fully, it's not just he's seeing the Lord, it's all experiences are happening. It's like having a being like transported into that scene where this particular individual can experience the beauty in a more tangible way, and experience the fragrance of the Lord, experience the a beauty of the Lord's face. And physically, this transformation is being explained in the verse also, that tears were rolling down his eyes, and without delay, that he could see the Lord in the lotus of his heart. And in this way, all the misgivings were removed. And the next stage is explained in the next verse, that immediately he has come to this stage of prayer, that at that time, overpowered by the feelings of happiness, every part of my body became this. And in that complete absorption in ecstasy, he could literally not even see himself, like basically because the tears were covering his eyes externally also and internally also. And in that way, basically he's saying how he was overcome by love of God. And basically in these two verses, we see how he first achieved the stage of Bhava, and then he's experiencing the stage of Prema also. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that spiritual feelings of happiness and intense ecstasies have no mundane comparison. We cannot just correlate with something of this worldly experience and understand these things. They are much intense and much qualitatively different. So we may not have a previous reference to understand these things completely. You may get an idea. So we can have just a glimpse of such ecstasy in the words of Sri Narada Muni. We can just get a glimpse by reading this. However, the actual experience obviously going to be so much more intense and deep. So he also says the transcendental form of the Lord satisfied his mind's desire and at once erased all the material incongruities. However, he also immediately soon lost that form that he was seeing. So as soon as that happened, he could not see that form of the Lord anymore. He becomes completely disturbed. But it is very usual when somebody has achieved such high level of attainment. What is very rare to get, what is difficult to achieve, he has achieved that, and to lose that can be very disturbing. So he's shocked, and you can imagine the desperation he have had. So immediately he started again trying. So he desired to see that transcendental form again. So he again attempted to concentrate upon his heart, with eagerness to see the form again. So he was like, okay, I sat in meditation, And I continued my meditation and the Lord appeared. So if I try again to meditate intensely, the Lord will again appear. However many times he tried and however much he tried, the Lord wouldn't appear again. And he was very disturbed and he was very aggrieved. And that's where Prabhupada writes, there is no mechanical process to see the form of the Lord. It is not that Narada Muni's meditation alone made it possible for him to see the Supreme Lord. Yes, the meditation was there, like the two fingers in Damodar pastime. The the meditation was there, was his personal endeavor was there, his detachment and his complete focus on spiritual life, everything was there. However, the Lord's mercy also came through. The Lord revealed himself. And because that mercy came, he could see the form of the Lord. So that's why Prabhupada is writing, there is no mechanical process to see the form of the Lord. It completely depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. We cannot demand the Lord to be present before our vision, just as we cannot demand the sun to rise whenever we like. The sun rises out of his own accord, so also the Lord is pleased to be present out of his causeless mercy. One should simply await the opportune moment and go on discharging his prescribed duty in devotional service of the Lord. So Narada Muni thought that the Lord could be seen again by the same mechanical process which was successful in the first attempt. But in spite of his utmost endeavor, he could not make the second attempt successful. So the Lord is completely independent of all obligations. So he can simply be bound by the tie of unalloyed devotion, nor is he visible or perceivable by our material senses. When he pleases, being satisfied with the sincere attempt of the devotional service, depending completely on the mercy of the Lord, then he can be seen out of his own accord. So even if we say, oh, I'm such a great devotee, still it is reserved. It's mercy. That means it is given, not based on any qualification when Krishna wants to. But there is no unnecessary reason. Krishna is not a masochistic Lord. It's not that he wants to torture. There is a reason that he is asking Narada Muni he's making Narada Muni go through this. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur also writes that because it is very clear. We can see that seeing the attempts of Narada Muni again, he's not giving up. He's again trying. So the Supreme Lord was also very moved. He says, seeing my attempts in that lonely place, the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all mundane description, spoke to me with grave and pleasing words just to mitigate my grief. So Krishna, revealed himself and then he disappeared. And Muni was continuing to again try. So the Lord realized, okay, the boy is persistent. So I need to tell him that there is a reason for what I am doing. So he speaks to him. Just a voice he is hearing, Ashariri. Oh Narada, I regret that during this lifetime, you will not be able to see me anymore. He is regretting. The words he is using is like, I regret. However, those who are incomplete in service and who are not completely free from all material taints can hardly see me. I have shown my mercy. I have revealed myself to you. However, I regret to inform that you won't be able to see me anymore in this life because I want you to become more perfect. He's already perfect. Vishnu also writes, he's on the preliminary stages of prema. He's in the preliminary stages of prema, and the Lord wants him to go to the advanced stage. Even within the prema also, within the perfected stage also, there are multiple levels. And that's what Krishna wants Narada to experience. That basically he wants him to become more desperate and not become complacent that he has already had the darshan of the Lord. So in order to increase his humility and also to refine his attachment to the Supreme Lord. Vishnu Thakur writes that how, yes, Narada actually had no material desires, being at the level of prema already. But by saying this, the Lord is increasing his humility. However, Narada is in the preliminary stages of prema. In his sadhaka deha, he is still in the same body as the boy, and it has to mature to a youthful state of prema, to an advanced stages of prema, and also achieve siddha deha. For that, he needs to have more longing. He needs to perfect more. So that youthful, that advanced level of prema allows the devotee to see the Lord constantly and serve him directly. So currently, he's still having his own the form as the small boy, but for him to be able to see the Lord constantly and serve him directly, he needs to refine himself more, and that is the reason the Lord appears and then explains to him, "This is the reason I am asking. You won't be able to see me again, and you, oh virtuous one, you have only once seen my person, And this is just to increase your desire for me. So Krishna has given a free sample. He has given a trailer, a teaser. So I want you to remember this, because the more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed from all material desires. And Prabhupada does very clearly. And also, desire is the strongest impetus in this world. There is no other impetus than desire in this world. So all the strongest impetus is desire, and that's what Krishna wants us to invest on him. So the more we all have this personal experience, we desire something, and if that desire is very strong, nothing matters. Once we have that, priority is basically our desire. So once we prioritize and we are very clear, this is what I want, then we do our best to achieve that thing. And Krishna is saying, yes, that desire is the strongest impetus. And I want you to apply that level of intense desire, hankering for me. So this, I see this line as so nice, how Prabhupada writes this. The more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed from all material desires. Because the desire cannot be completely killed. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, we can never become desireless. Maybe the Buddhist and the Advaita philosophy may say that, but Vaishnava philosophy never says that you can completely kill your desires. The more you hanker, the more that desires are focused towards Krishna, the more we become free from lower desires. And that's why Prabhupada is saying, a living being cannot be vacant of desires. He's not a dead stone. He must be working, thinking, feeling, and willing. But he has to just transfer that on the Supreme Lord. The more a person is engaged in the service of the Lord, the more he acquires a hankering for it. That's the transcendental nature of godly service. And in this way, Prabhupada is like throwing a light that how there was no material desire in Narada, and yet just to increase his intense desire for the Lord, he was so advised. Prabhupada is also reflecting on what Prabhupada was writing. And in this way, now Narada Muni is giving a statement in verse 23. By service of the absolute truth, even for a few days, a devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in him. It's basically, it's the Lord is saying this. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds. He's basically encouraging Narada Muni. Even a little devotional service can actually make one firm. So don't worry. So Sat, even if it is for a very short time, somebody has served me, they will achieve firm and fixed intelligence. And gradually they will eventually become the associate of the Supreme Lord. And that's what Krishna is facilitating. So he's facilitating Narada's journey to go from not just stop there, but to eventually become his associate to the transcendental world. That's what he wants. That's why he's making him more and more desperate for Krishna. Serving the absolute truth means, Prabhupada is writing in the purport, serving the absolute truth means rendering service to the Supreme Lord under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. So through the training under the spiritual master, gradually the neophyte devotee gets intelligence and eventually completely advances to that extent. He gets promoted to the transcendental world to be one of the associates of the Supreme Lord. So to go from a nobody, completely lost in material conditioning and in the material world, life after life, suffering, death, birth, death, and old age and disease, completely lost in material consciousness. And from there to actually become an associate of the Supreme Lord, that's a long journey. And that needs direction and training. And that's why Prabhupada is emphasizing the role of a spiritual teacher here. And Krishna is continuing that intelligence engaged in my devotion cannot be thwarted at any time, even at the time of creation as well as at the time of annihilation. Your remembrance will continue by my mercy. He's giving a special mercy to Narada Muni that he will be able to continue to remember this whole experience. And Prabhupada takes a general principle from there and says, devotional service rendered to the Supreme Lord never goes in vain. So such accumulation of God service is never vanquished, but increases till fully matured. It keeps on increasing. It's never lost. Like we see this verse, Neha Vasti, that we all have heard many times. So then Narada Muni is saying, then the Supreme Lord, personified by sound, unseen by eyes, stopped speaking. And what did Mani feel? Was he angry? Oh my God, this guy is like cheating me. He gave a little taste and now he wants me to work hard. This was a trap. He didn't feel that. He's feeling a sense of gratitude because there was a real experience of Krishna. So he's not feeling trapped. He's not feeling tricked. Or you give a little taste and then you want me to hanker for it. Like looks like a, what do you call, a marketing strategy. he was not feeling like that. He was feeling a complete sense of gratitude. I offered my obeisances unto him, bowing my head, like he literally offered his full dandavats, hearing that voice of the Supreme Lord. Because that level of connection with the Supreme Lord, even just hearing his voice can be so amazing, so spiritually nourishing. And he just saw the Supreme Lord and now he heard him. Having such a personal reciprocation with the Supreme Lord, you can only imagine how much of a gratitude and ecstasy that Narada Muni is experiencing. So all he could do was just offer obeisances, a complete dandavats, falling flat and bowing his head. So in that way, he accepted the instruction. Basically, what does that mean? Figuratively, Narada Muni is saying that he fully received that instruction and accepted it and was ready to offer his life for that instruction, to follow that instruction. And that's what figuratively he's saying, that I offered my obeisance, because that's what he says in the next verse, such a famous verse. Now verse 26 is a famous verse. If anyone wants to memorize any verses from this chapter, this could be a nice verse. As I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world, basically he became shameless. He didn't care about anything. He just continued to chant the names and the pastimes of the Lord. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord or benedictory Bhadrani. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and unenvious. I was neither proud that I had the darshan of the Lord, nor was I envious of anything that other people were having or not having. So he was completely detached from all those feelings, and all that he was focused on doing was that just chanting, a repeated recitation of the holy names of the Lord and his pastimes, ignoring all formalities. And the word is means being freed from all formalities of the material world. And in that way, Patan, he was reciting completely, repeated recitation, all the pastimes and the names of the Supreme Lord. Samana, he was fully satisfied. He was completely freed from all material desires. And in this way, he was not envious or he was not proud. He was just focused on chanting of the Lord, and nothing could distract him. His intelligence was completely focused. And Prabhupada is saying the life of a sincere devotee of the Lord is thus explained in a nutshell by Narada Muni by his personal example. This is the purport. Like he's saying, this is the life of a sincere devotee in a nutshell. Such a devotee, after his initiation by the Lord or his bona fide representative, takes very seriously chanting of the glories of the Lord and traveling all over the world so that others may also hear the glories of the Lord. Such devotees have no desire for material gain. They are conducted by one single desire, to go back to Godhead. This awaits them in due course on quitting the material body, because they have the highest aim of life, going back to Godhead. They are never envious of anyone, nor are they proud of being eligible to go back to Godhead. Their only business is to chant and remember the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord, and according to personal capacity, to distribute the message for others' welfare without motive of material gain. So we can see, take inspiration from what Narada Muni was doing after initiation. This is the question that he is answering. What did you exactly do after the initiation? So he continued to chant. Evam Krishnamate, that is, and so in due course of time, I was so fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and therefore had no attachments. And when he really achieved that complete purification, then immediately his material body vanished. Basically, he met with death. There was no need for him to continue to live. When he achieved that full perfection, Krishna orchestrated for his material body to end. And simultaneously, he also achieved a spiritual form, having like how a thundering and lightning occurs simultaneously. Lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. Similarly, he was awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of a personal associate of the Lord. He quit his material body and all his karma was vanquished. And at the same time, he also achieved the spiritual body. And then he says that how at that end of that millennium, he, along with Brahma, entered into the, like, basically there was a partial destruction because it is the end of the day of Brahma. And again in the next day he was awakened along with others like Marichi and other sons of Brahma. And when Brahma awoke, all the creation came back. And he also, Narada Muni appeared in his transcendental body again. And in that way, Since then, he's saying, by the grace of the Almighty Lord, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the three divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotion service of the Lord. So he's giving all credit for his who he is to the potency of pure devotional service. That's all. And then he says, from then on, what is he doing? So he's doing that. He's saying that from then on, I just travel everywhere and continue to sing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. Krishna personally gifted him this veena, that so that he could continue to chant. He says Devada is given by the Supreme Lord. Its sound is spiritual. Its swara is Brahma. It's a spiritual sound. What is this veena is invoking is a spiritual sound. So he's constantly he is singing without even a break. He's constantly singing about Hari Katha. I move here and there, singing about the glories of the Supreme Lord. So the musical instrument called Veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Krishna, is a personal gift. And Prabhupada writes, this transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Krishna and Narada because all of them are of same transcendental category. The sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material. Therefore, whatever things that he is singing, they are all actually spiritual. And the same Supreme Lord Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart as if called for as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. What I see, Krishna Muni is also giving a very interesting statement. He's saying, okay, first time I meditated, the Lord appeared in my heart and he disappeared. What about now? He says, whenever I chant, immediately the Lord appears and sits in my heart and listens to my chanting. So now there is no break. He's constantly chanting. That means Krishna is constantly sitting in his heart and hearing. So he is able to constantly experience Krishna. And as we discussed earlier, this experience is not like a mental visual thing or like it's not imagination. It's a real experience of being with Krishna, being experiencing the fragrance of Krishna, experiencing the sweetness of his form, the beauty of his form. It is a different level of association, and that he is having constantly. The Lord is sitting in his heart. And this is another important verse. Verse 34 is also an important verse. If anyone wants to memorize, they can memorize in this particular chapter. Verse 26 and 34. 34 is, so this is like conclusion of this chapter that Narada Muni is giving, that now that he has spoken about what he does now, he is giving a conclusion to the final message to Vyasadeva. He's saying, from his personal experience, he's saying, from my personal experience, that those who are always full of cares and anxieties, one who's full of anxieties, we all are in that category. We all have something to worry about. We have something to do, and we are full of all the times absorbed in our to-dos because we are living in this world and there is so much things that comes along with living in this world. So he says, then what is the best thing for those kind of people? He says, who are always full of care and anxieties due to desiring the contact of the senses with their objects, can cross over the Nishayans on a most suitable boat. What is the suitable boat for someone who is completely absorbed in the cares and anxieties of this world? The constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the Hari Charya. So one has to continue to repeat. Constant. Anuvarnanam can be following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas and repeating, or Anuvarnanam can be constant repeating. So constantly engaging in reading and sharing and describing and meditating on the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. That is the best, he's saying. Basically chanting and hearing and meditating on the Lord. So Prabhupada writes a amazing Prabhupada. He says, the symptom of a living being is that he cannot remain silent even for some time. He must do something. So there is always a lot of cares and anxieties because of that. And that's why Prabhupada is saying no one can shake the thinking activities of a living being. So, but if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject. Instead of talking of the politics of it, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord himself. Instead of relishing activities of the cinema artist, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord with his eternal associates like the gopis and Lakshmis. So in this context, in this connection, there is also a nice purport in Bhagavad Gita, I think chapter 17, verse 16, if I remember rightly. Prabhupada says, what is the way to become satisfied? He says, reading these Vedic literatures makes the mind satisfied and detached from sense gratification. So here we see that how Narada Muni is giving a prescription that if anyone wants to overcome the ocean of nescience, the suitable boat is chanting. And he compares bhakti with other paths now in verse 35. This is also a famous verse. That it is true that by practicing restraint of the senses, like basically the idea is he's saying one can become free from the disturbances of the desire and lust through the process of yoga. Basically, Yamadivir Yoga Patai means Ashtanga Yoga. Through the process of Ashtanga Yoga, one can actually get freed from the disturbances of the desire and lust. But that is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul. The soul will not be fully satisfied by that. Like how it can be fully satisfied by muktis, the satisfaction derived from the devotion service to the Supreme Lord is much more fuller. It's not just the negation of the negative, it is also the offering of the positive is possible. Basically, the pain is removed, but that does not mean you become happy. So, bhakti can remove the problem as well as provide spiritual satisfaction also. So, yoga just aims at controlling the senses. So, just because a person is controlled, sense controlled, does not mean they are also spiritually advanced. They can be advanced, but what we are speaking is they are able to satisfy the Supreme Lord fully. So the comparison between these processes, which process can give most satisfaction to Krishna? It's not about which is better and I follow that better process, so I am great. It's not for that kind of an understanding. The comparison is which process can give most satisfaction to the soul and the Supreme Lord. And now he's basically giving his advice to Vyasadeva. Oh, Vyasadeva, you are freed from all sins. I have explained my birth and activities, and this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. This can help you actually contemplate. So in this way, now, like Vyasadeva was addressed by Narada Muni. So Narada Muni instructed him. So think about all of these things. I have given you enough instructions. You are intelligent. You are smart. So figure this out. So in this way, he takes leave, vibrating on his Veena instrument. He continues to wander at his will. And Suta Goswami saying, all glory and success to Srila Narada Muni because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead. And so doing, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. So basically, Muni is not just doing it for others. At the same time, it's not that he is only doing it for his pleasure. He is spiritually nourished and satisfied and continues to experience spiritually that satisfaction and also helps everybody else. Raman, he is also enjoying and he's also delivering the universe in this way. And this chapter is concluded in this way. And if a quick summary we have to see before taking questions is basically Vyasadeva inquired what happened after Narada Muni's initiation and after the sages left, and how is he remembering his past life. And Narada Muni explained his early life, that how he was continuing to live in a Brahmana school, being taken care of his mother, bound by her ties of affection, and by the mercy of Krishna, his mother passes away, and he considers it as a mercy of Krishna and leaves homes alone in the direction of north. And he explains his travels, how the various things he saw, and basically why he is explaining that he was focused. He was one pointed attention. He was not distracted by anything. He just wanted Krishna and he was just focused on that. And in that way, because of his one laser focus, one pointed attention, his meditation process as instructed by the sages, he engaged in it. There is a quick purification. He has the first darshan of the Lord, and after that the Lord voluntarily takes back that darshan from Narada Muni. He continues to try. He cannot see. Taking pity, the Lord speaks to him saying, Narada, however many times you try, you won't be able to see in this life. I'm very sorry, but you cannot again see in this life. But continue to actually do your spiritual practice, and you will be fully purified, and you will become an eternal associate of me. And you will also remember all of these things. I grant you eternal memory. You will remember all of these things forever to inspire others, and so that you can share and inspire others and also keep you inspired. And in this way, Narada Muni accepts that and chants continuously and attains perfection. Once he attains perfection, he leaves the body and gains a spiritual form. And in the next day of Brahma, again, he is reborn as Narada Muni, as a spiritual personality who can unrestrictedly travel all over the world and beyond due to his great devotion. And then he glorifies Kirtan as the boat to cross samsara. How he chanted, how he went through the process, and how chanting is the best process for anyone who's struggling in this world with anxieties and cares for taking care and for living in this world. And he says how yoga and all these processes may help reduce or calm it can destroy karma, greed, and lust. However, it cannot now that those things cannot actually satisfy the soul. How the service to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord can satisfy, to that extent, those processes cannot satisfy. And in this way, he establishes the bhakti. And then he concludes to Vyasadeva, you are intelligent, you know what is the best to do now. And in this way, he leaves and continues to glorify on his Veena the glories of the Supreme Lord. So this is the short overview of the chapter. And I know many of you have heard this chapter so many times already. And I'll do the thematic study and then I'll open it up for questions. We all know every chapter we try to see through the lens of the 10 topics. And Poshana is the special protection that the Lord offers to his devotees. And here we see that how the Narada Muni is being protected by the Lord. He directly intervened in his life and helped him renounce early, and also appeared to him and disappeared, and spoke to him and gave him instructions and guided him. And in this way, is practically engaged in his life of his devotee. So Poshana is brought out. And Ishanukata, we see the whole life story of Narada Muni, which is a powerful narrative of how powerful bhakti is. And then we also see how Narada Muni takes complete shelter of Krishna. So all these things are touched upon. On the canto level context, there are 3 topics. One is Adhikari Tattva. That is, what is the qualification for reading, hearing Bhagavatam and also Bhakti? What is the ultimate sadhana and what is the ultimate object of that worship? Here we see in this chapter, Narada Muni was born of a son of a maidservant. He had no social status whatsoever, especially in a traditional society. Still, by his humble service to the devotees and his sincere hearing, he became fully qualified and he became the Narada Muni just from being nobody. So this shows that purity of heart and devotion are the true qualifications, not birth or scholarship. So what is the Adhikari? Tattva is humble service to the devotees and sincere efforts in hearing and chanting. That's all, nothing else matters. No amount of external qualification or disqualification is relevant to advancing in bhakti. And as far as Uttama Sadhya, which is the highest goal, we see that Narada Muni expresses through his personal life how prema, that achieving love of Godhead, is the ultimate goal, and the object of that goal is Krishna, not liberation or achieving mystical power. And Uttama Sadhana, through his constant remembrance of hearing and chanting, Muni through his personal life establishes that how bhakti is the foremost process for achieving perfection. And also through the verse 35, where he compares it with yoga, he establishes, in comparison with other processes also, bhakti as the best process to achieve perfection. And the last, we do see this chapter through the Sambandha, Abhidheya and Prayojana context. We see that how Narada Muni realizes his identity as a servant of the Lord, that through his association with the devotees and also direct darshan of the Lord. In this way, this chapter reveals that the Lord is the supreme entity who appears but remains beyond material nature. It also gives an understanding of the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord, that we cannot force him. And also we see the Abhideya is emphasized, that how hearing and chanting is the Bhakti Sadhana is emphasized in this chapter. And also we see Prayojana, that how through this Bhakti Sadhana, what is the ultimate goal to be achieved? Muni, literally the spiritual personality, that he is there in every canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, preaching the glories of the Lord. So just through this sadhana of hearing and chanting, he has become who he is. And that's also very clearly portrayed in this chapter. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, please. I know I didn't give too much time for interaction today. I'm sorry, but we can have questions and answers now. Yes, Sundara.
Thank you for the wonderful explanation. Yes, this slide. So you had something on post-millennial, the rebirth, right? The third last.
Mhm.
But just wondering a little bit. Okay, firstly, it seems a little harsh for us, like looking at the whole way, like how Narad Muni he went through. But did he, what does that mean? Did he have to actually go sleep in the body of Vishnu like everyone else? How do we understand that? Because
Uh,
it said that he already got his spiritual form as lightning, right? Right
mhm,
after he. Then what happens in between? Is he still sleeping with everyone else? Like it said, all these souls.
For example, even if a devotee has achieved prema and living in this world, they need to rest in the night, rest at night. You have to go with the rules of the world. Like somebody may be advanced level of consciousness, they cannot have 24 hours programs because they have to live within the rules of the material world. That just because they are very great does not mean the particular flow in which the material world goes. That cosmic practicality that he has to also go along with that. However, from the time is a unique concept that it's very relative. For us on the human level it's a different thing, but when you go to the demigod level it's just like our 6 months is one day. So imagine the 6 months of our experience and one day, it could be like so drastic. And when you just dilate, when you just, they call it time dilation sometimes, when you just go higher and higher on the level of Garbhishnu, it's like a moment. So yes, he is spiritually advanced, but still he is here in this world to render service. And there is a formula or there is a rule that the world is like going through, so that he has to also adjust to it.
Thank you.
Gail and
Yeah, just a couple things. One is I just want to confirm that Narada Muni, he saw the Lord in the same where his mom died.
yes, in that very life.
In that very life.
Yes.
And it's in the next day of Lord Brahma that he saw the Lord again.
In the sense, by the next day of Brahma, he was literally Narada Muni.
Yeah.
So that means like he had already achieved the spiritual perfection in the previous life and he continued. However, at that end of the day, then he go rests and then he comes back. In this day, when he came back as Narada Muni, because that is his spiritual perfected form now.
Okay, wait. So I'm still a little confused. So day of Brahma,
Okay.
that his mom died and he saw the Lord, right? But
yes.
the Lord told him that you will not see me again in this life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next time the Lord, I was asking if the next time meant the following day of Lord Brahma.
He saw the Lord, of course, yes. Like in this life, he said, basically in that body as a boy, this is the last time he is having darshan. Once he achieved spiritual perfection, he achieved a spiritual form. As soon as that form came, that spiritual form came, he was constantly in touch with the Lord. Am I making sense?
So did he attain that spiritual form, that perfected form, all in the same day of Brahma as when he first
Yes.
saw the.
Yes, he achieved perfection in that life. And that's what, if you see that particular verse,
Wait, in that life. Okay, I don't know.
if you read the verse 27, it clearly says, in due course of time, I was absorbed in Lord Krishna, and thus I became completely freed from all the material taints. He became completely perfected. So then he met with death. And in the next verse, he says, quitting the material body, he immediately receives a spiritual body.
Okay. Okay, so that all that happened within one day of Lord Brahma then.
In that life.
Okay, I think, let me go. You said verse 27?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to have to read that. Then just one other thing was, oh my God, what was the other thing? Oh, yeah. How did we understand his initiation of Narada Muni? How did we understand when he got initiated?
Because in the previous chapter, towards the end, there is one verse in which Narada Muni says, when those sages were leaving, they actually instructed me with a mantra.
Oh, okay.
So that is assumed as initiation.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, my question is not directly related to this pastime, but one that you shared about Narad Muni's mother's passing away, right? Like Narad Muni did not have his father, and his mother also passes away at the tender age of 5. Of course, Narad Muni was a very elevated soul, business. So when his mother passes away, instead of blaming and complaining, he's looking at that as an opportunity to get closer to the Supreme. So he looks at the adversity as an opportunity, basically. But usually, what we see in devotees' life, or with generally people in general, and even devotees, I've seen that when we are going through a very difficult circumstance, maybe something similar. So one just past week, I got a call from one of our devotee community member. That person was very disturbed because something similar happened in her life, and that person mentioned that she has fully stopped chanting for past couple
Mm-hmm.
of weeks. And at that time, like rather than even looking that as Lord's mercy, he may
Mm-hmm.
start blaming the Lord or
Mm-hmm.
complaining, criticizing this process altogether. Hey, why is
Mm-hmm.
this happening in my life? So time, of course, we understand that there's law of karma and cause and effect. That is very mechanistic and all of that is there. But in that time when a person is going through that situation, making that person understand through law of karma and all that can sound a little insensitive. And also that person is not ready to hear that this is Lord's mercy, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
That is like a very elevated level of thought process.
Yes.
How would you recommend dealing with, apart from just hearing them out, what else
Mm.
recommend that we can, how can we talk to people when they are actually going through such intense adversities in their life?
It's practically quite hard. I would say there are multiple, based on my experience, it's a very awkward situation. I'm not very adept in handling such situations. I also feel very bewildered because it is one thing to manage our attitude, and especially in these kind of difficult circumstances, and when we see somebody's faith is being shaken, it's quite jarring. At the same time, whatever little experience I've had in dealing with such situations, I see there are multiple perspectives or multiple factors, that how much is our like personal spiritual conviction, not just knowing, but investment that we have in their lives, how much personal connection we have with that person. That also is sometimes very important. How much trust they have in us, not just as a devotee, as a person also. And that can actually help us to hold them and give them some solace, and give them that space to go through those emotions but not being judged, and also continuing be that friend. However, if they are like, they also have to manage their attitude. It's everybody has to take responsibility for their own attitude also. So that is why coming to devotion is not just a very external thing. It's not just somebody chants means that they have really changed the way they think. So that deep transformation also needs to happen. And we can pray. As you said, it may not be the right time to share philosophical, like kind of an perspective, and it can even hurt them more and make them more angry. How much relationship do we have? Do we have that level of friendship to hold them, to help them feel heard and feel a little bit more solace? That I would say plays a big role. How much we are also personally spiritually advanced. And I usually feel a little bewildered in that situation, to be very honest. Try to just pacify them and comfort them, and go personally. Is there anything practically that they need? Do they want, if they are like to that extent, I don't want to even see devotees. I just don't want to deal with all of these things. If they become too antagonistic, then giving the space will be the only way. There will be no other. If they are okay, they're like disturbed, but they're still okay to be around the devotees and share and hear, then there is more opportunity. Let's not, we may not like ask, we may not just judge them, or you have just given up bhakti or anything like that. We may just continue to be a friend, and eventually, gradually, and they will also start seeing. We can pray to Krishna, please. I do see this person is going through difficult time. There is your plan, there is all their destiny, all these things are playing. But my humble prayer is, please give them the faith that they can see the silver lining in this situation. Eventually, as the emotions subside, they can gradually reconcile. But however, sometimes things can happen in such a way that it's irreconcilable on an emotional level. So it is between that person and Krishna. We can offer prayers, we can be a friend, and whenever they are willing, we can continue to support them devotionally. And as a friend also, whatever on a external level we can, practical level we can support and offer our prayers. And more than this, I have not had a more of a personal practical experience. Anything, anybody else, others in the call, if they want to add, please. Yes, Niro Prabhu, is it you're going to add on this particular topic, or is it a different question?
Yeah, I just sorry, I was partially paying attention. I may have missed the first part of it, but it sounds like this friend had a little bit of a misconception. And I know many other devotees, when they take up Krishna consciousness, they think the material life will go good. So I just feel like her situation, there's a misunderstanding. Like the pain she's feeling now is because she's in the material world. All this chanting that we're doing is to go back to Godhead. It's to get out of the material world. So it is because we chant Hare Krishna and do our sadhana, that doesn't mean that our material life will go good. Sometimes we'll make arrangements to keep things stable or flowing or whatever. And this is just speaking from my own personal experience. I've done a lot of bhakti, but I've also still suffered a lot because that's just the nature of the material world. For me, it's like fuel. Like this suffering is fuel for me to like, all right, there's nothing here for them in the material world. Let me just dive deeper into sadhana.
Yeah.
So it does sound like there's a little bit of the expectations were off.
Yes, I totally agree. It's the quality of Shraddha. Just because everybody is starting to practice does not mean the quality of Shraddha is all same. So like exclusive, pure Shraddha means having that faith. Okay, whatever happens in my life is Krishna's mercy. That's called as pure Shraddha. And there is no alternative to developing that. So that is why we can take inspiration from that particular as a caution. We can take it as a personal caution for us that when everything is normal, when everything is going okay, that's not because, oh, bhakti is working, everything is great, so that's all. So I need to do. No, rather we do use that time to actually strengthen our Shraddha. And that also matters what kind of association we have. So if we had like a powerful association through which we are lifted from those material perspectives, a strong spiritual association is that association which can actually bring us out all of that and show us and give us help us attain that pure Shraddha. So as devotees, it is also our responsibility when people take up, we can guide them gradually to have the right perspective. It's not like a material prosperity gospel philosophy. However, after all of this also, if a person has just started coming and if they are feeling such a difficult situation, if it is shaking their faith, it's very heartbreaking. And we are also helpless. We can try, but we are also not fully like in control of others' life. So try our best, speak sensitively, give support, and hold space, and continue to pray to Krishna. Keep in touch. That's all we can do. We don't have full control over another person's attitude. That's my 2 cents. What do you think?
Yes, that's great points, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. And what Nirav Prabhu also said, I agree with that. It's just that when someone is expressing this, like we cannot be upfront about
Yes, we can. No, it's not the time.
wrong expectations of the process. Of course, it's not a magic wand. We all understand. It's not like Rome was not built in a day. So yes, absolutely, Prabhu. I agree with both of your points around association and yeah, Prabhu, about Shraddha as well. Just because we have picked up the chanting beads and we have started going to the temple, it will not develop immediately. It is a long process and we are taking baby steps. So yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I just want to say what I said was it shouldn't be like direct advice like right away.
Yes,
It's just
absolutely.
I just see I've seen plenty of examples where devotees just with newcomers, or even devotees, they tell newcomers, yeah, your life will be so much better if you do this. And no, that's not guaranteed. But even sometimes Shastra will show like when devotees chant as a side effect, of bhakti, you could gain opulence, but that's a side effect. That's not the main thing. And it may not even happen. And Krishna himself says at the 11th canto, I know I'm jumping like 10 cantos, but he says that, if he favors a devotee, he'll make their life miserable. So it's not, bhakti's it's not smooth sailing. It's not going to be smiles all the time.
Yeah. And absolutely, as I think Garshan Prabhu mentioned one more thing about the reconciliation part. Maybe it will not happen immediately while you're in that situation. But as Steve Jobs said, that you can always connect the dots in the past. Maybe years from now, you will know, oh, this probably happened for my good.
Yeah.
So that is also there, having that faith in that situation. Yeah. Thank you so much, Neerav Prabhu and Garshan Prabhu, for your inputs.
Thank you. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. It's 10:32. I'm very grateful for all of your time and attention. And yes, Sundarananda Prabhu, Sundar Gopal.
Sorry, Prabhu. If you don't mind, just one quick short question.
Yes. Can I stop the
Prabhu,
share so I can see you?
yes, whatever
Screen
you
share?
want.
No, do you want to refer to any slides or anything? No.
No, I was just going
Okay.
to continue asking off of what you just said.
Okay.
Prabhu, a very quick question. One of the things you said was that we should pray for that devotee. I just wanted to ask based on that when we try to pray for someone else, how much does that really work? Because it's a very nice thing to do, right? Because you might not be able to help someone directly while interacting with them, but that's a nice thing to do when you're by yourself to pray for that person. So I just wanted to ask a little more on those lines, like how much does that, or how much can that actually help? Because that's a little more in our control in that sense, right? But also, like that other person whom we're praying for has their own journey, their own free will. But it would be such a thing to do, to pray for that person. Krishna, give that person that faith, give the person the ability. Will that actually work, or how much? Because that would be a nice thing to do, but how much will that actually work? I'm just wondering about that, because my prayer might not be that strong. If I can imagine, Prabhupada must have been praying for conditioned souls, a spiritual prayer for conditioned souls. I'm sure those prayers of advanced devotees must be definitely working. But like my level devotee making a prayer for some other person, do you have any thoughts, or do you have any scriptural reference? I loved that thought to pray for someone else. I'm just hoping or wondering how much it will work.
Again, multiple
And from my level,
factors. Like thinking about this question, Krishna listens to his devotees and he can intervene and make changes. That is there. But how much? And he's not obliged by anything. So our prayer is also Krishna. Like I see his faith is this devotee's faith is like getting rocked. I pray that like their faith in you is more sustained through this phase. And externally also, you're not just praying, but you're also how much you can actually show actual support. That also helps. And with this exclusively thinking about this prayer thing, yeah, Krishna usually listens to his devotees and intervenes and can intervene. But again, depends on, he is the final authority. For us, it is as a sadhaka, it is good to soften our hearts. They say, okay. So in order to feel that, it takes a level of compassion, it takes so much of a character to feel someone else's pain and to pray. So even if Krishna decides not to intervene in a certain way, but that we want him to intervene in that devotee's life, still he'll be pleased that we are being a paradukha dukhi. So that quality of our heart can touch Krishna, and because of that, he can even choose to intervene. So it's the nature of a devotee to feel for someone else's suffering and pray that they can be well. We are not saying, okay, they let them be comfortable or let everything go externally, quote unquote, positive. What we are basically saying is like how they can be, our concern is that they remain close to Krishna. And that's what we are praying for, their devotion. And Krishna appreciates that. And he might choose to whatever he wants to do, because we don't know the big picture. If a child is crying and when the doctor is operating, we cannot tell the doctor, oh, please be gentle. The doctor knows if the child goes through this phase, eventually it's going to feel better. So we can say to the doctor, oh, please be careful, just to pacify the child. But our prayer is not like that. Our prayer is, okay, here we don't understand the whole picture, so we can pray like that. Krishna, I don't understand the whole picture. I know you care for everyone. You are personally intervening in this devotee's life. I'm praying that their faith can be actually strengthened through this phase. So basically, it improves our own character, and also gives us, we are all made of each other's prayers on a certain level. Some devotee prayed for us and wishing well for us, so that's how we are being protected. So we can use that as a service, so that will also soften our heart. Is there anything? Yeah, these are the few thoughts I had.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I'm also thinking more now, but thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Mother Gail?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, just following up on this, because but I think you might have addressed my concern, which is that we understand that Krishna is always thinking about everyone's best interest and their welfare at all times. that he only begins to think like that when we pray for others. He's already thinking like that.
Yes.
I was going to ask then, what is the point of our prayer? But you could ask it because, what your response just now resonates with how I pray myself for others. I don't pray that the situation be removed from the suffering person's life because, as you said, Krishna knows best what the person needs. Why would I pray for the removal of that situation when that's actually the medicine that they need? So how I usually pray is, Krishna, just allow them to experience your care and affection for them through this situation that they need to undergo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And another thing I was also thinking was that as has already been said, it's not that the circumstances of a devotee will change just because now they are,
Devotee.
but what will change is over time how they will experience those circumstances. The way you experience the circumstances when you're at one stage of your development will be quite different from how you experience those exact same circumstances at a more advanced stage of your development. So basically, we just have to keep plugging away and wait,
True.
so that, and that's what's called transcendence. Transcendence, your circumstances change. Transcendence means the way you experience those circumstances change. And the reason why we experience them in a different way is because, for one thing, detachment sets in. So we're not identifying with the body as much. And also because we're so much more absorbed in Krishna consciousness that the circumstances don't affect us and touch us the same way as they did when we were more fused with our bodily identification.
Thank you.
So those were some thoughts.
Yeah, based on what you were saying, I also have this feeling that how much it is important for us to create a strong community. Like we can just come into bhakti and think, oh, me and my Krishna, that's all. Like, and if they are in that kind of assume that kind of a romantic situation, yeah, when Krishna starts slapping, it can be very hard. So you need support system, like a strong, deeply connected community, not just on a friendly level of oh, I know these devotees, I go around, not that level,
like acquaintance level. Yeah,
not just a basic acquaintance level, but deeply like studying shastra together, coming together and becoming strong friends and continuing to chant and passing that level of formalities of just knowing each other and that a basic level of acquaintance, crossing that and becoming like having a deeper connection with devotees can be very helpful. And the sooner a person does, the stronger a safety net they develop in their devotional journey.
Yeah, beautiful. I know you're always making this point that devotee association is not just important, it's like critical.
It's the thing which makes or breaks our devotional journey. It can actually expedite or delay. It can save us from a lot of misery. I'm saying this from personal experience also. So that is why this is my recent thing also. The more I have delayed and the more I have taken it for granted, all my problems in life is pretty much coming from there. And I see, oh, it's very important. And then I feel like, oh, how did I just read Bhagavatam and miss this? Because Prahlad Maharaj is praying to Narsingadev, please give me the association of devotees. Prithu Maharaj is praying to Vishnu, standing before him, please give me the association of devotees. Dhruva Maharaj, personal question of Vishnu and praying for the association of devotees. I'm like, that's interesting. Now looking back, and I all these memorized these verses, but never like deeply thought about that. Why would these great souls achieve so much perfection and having personal darshan of the Lord are praying for having more darshan, association of devotees? And they're basically teaching us how important it is for us. Because if you want to experience the joy of bhakti, singing and hearing and chanting about the Lord, then you need association.
Yeah, actually, can you expand on that? The fact that although a person has attained the ultimate, they've got darshan of the Lord, how is it that they're experiencing this need for the association of devotees? What can that do for them that the darshan hasn't already done?
Based on my limited understanding, I feel like they have a darshan, they have that personal experience, but they, in their individual circumstances, like Prahlad Maharaj is not going to just live with Narada, like Narsingadev at that time. Like he has a life to live after that also. And Prithu Maharaj also, the Lord came and he will go back. And Dhruv Maharaj also had a darshan and he will go back. And they are all concerned, like, how do I maintain this consciousness? And how do I continue to remember and experience that joy that I'm experiencing now? That will be because of recounting this devotional experiences. And for that, I need someone who can actually understand the value of bhakti and to be able to have that conversation with someone. Because you can just speak to anyone about anything, but to have these deeper conversations and to reciprocate accordingly, you need someone of that level of consciousness also.
Yeah, somebody
Who values that and who can really understand that.
Okay. Yes.
And we have that. And if we are not utilizing it on that level, then we are also not, we won't be fully satisfied at heart.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Grateful. Sorry for going really overtime. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, somehow all your overtime sessions are where you pour out the most sweetest nectar. So I think we should specially have these overtimes.
That is why I did this. Like, I covered the chapter in 1 hour. So if anybody really wants to leave, they can leave. Post whoever can stay, because that's
no,
the
Prabhu, the
new.
hour is just general warm up, and then nectar sharing starts at 10:15. I've noticed.
Yeah, the only time you should apologize is when we do not go overtime.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all. The after party, as Chinmay is saying. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being that association for me and helping me to study Bhagavatam and prepare. And I wish I could do a better job, but at least I'm doing something with all of your association. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.